The alarm screamed through the bridge of the Earth Defense Command ship Defender. Admiral Dae-Ho Kim watched the tactical display with growing horror. Red dots representing enemy ships covered the screen like a deadly rash. Each red dot was a helix vessel, and there were thousands of them. "Sir, we've lost contact with Luna Base," reported Lieutenant So-Young Park from her station. Her voice stayed steady, but Dae-Ho could see the fear in her eyes. "The enemy has broken through our outer defenses." Dae-Ho nodded grimly. He had known this day would come. For 3 years, humanity had fought the Helix Collective across dozens of star systems. Every battle ended the same way. Human ships would fight bravely, then suddenly go dark. The Helix had weapons that could drain all power from human vessels, leaving them floating dead in space. "How many civilian ships have made it to the jump points?" Dae-Ho asked. 60% of the evacuation fleet is away, sir," So-Young answered. "But the enemy is moving to cut off the remaining routes." Through the bridge windows, Dae-Ho could see Earth below. The blue marble that had been humanity's home for millions of years was now under attack. Bright flashes of light marked where Helix weapons struck the surface. Each flash meant thousands of people were dying. "Admiral, this is Captain Min-Woo Lee aboard the research vessel Discovery," came a voice over the communication system. "I need to speak with you immediately. It's about the enemy." Dae-Ho knew Min-Woo well. The young scientist had been studying, captured Helix technology for months. If anyone could find a weakness in the enemy, it would be him. "Put him through," Dae-Ho ordered. Min-Woo's face appeared on the main screen. His usually neat hair was messy, and his lab coat was stained with various chemicals. Behind him, Dae-Ho could see the chaos of a research lab during wartime. "Admiral, I think I found something," Min-Woo said quickly. "The Helix aren't as perfect as we thought. Their technology works by creating perfect patterns. Everything they do follows exact mathematical rules." "Get to the point, Doctor," Dae-Ho said as another explosion rocked the ship. "That's just it, sir. They can't handle chaos. When we tested random energy patterns against their shield technology, it caused system failures. The more random and unpredictable our attacks are, the more trouble they have adapting." Dae-Ho felt a spark of hope for the first time in months. "Are you sure about this?" "I've run the tests a dozen times. Their crystal-based systems need order to function. Chaos confuses them." Before Dae-Ho could respond, the tactical officer shouted, "Enemy fleet moving to attack formation. All remaining defense ships are engaging." On the screen, Dae-Ho watched the last of Earth's defense fleet rush toward the Helix Armada. The human ships looked like tiny insects attacking a swarm of mechanical giants. Within minutes, most of the human vessels went dark, their power drained by Helix weapons. "Sir, we're receiving a message from Captain So-Young Park aboard the Shadowbane," the communications officer reported. So-Young had been promoted and given command of humanity's newest stealth ship just weeks before the invasion. The Shadowbane was built using experimental technology that Dae-Ho didn't fully understand. "Admiral, I'm moving to cover the last evacuation ships." So-Young's voice crackled over the speaker. "My ship has some new systems that might give us an edge." "Negative, Captain. Fall back with the rest of the fleet," Dae-Ho ordered. "Sorry, sir, but I can't do that. There are still 50,000 civilians trying to get away. Someone has to buy them time." Dae-Ho watched as the small stealth ship moved toward a group of Helix vessels that were closing in on the evacuation convoy. The Shadowbane seemed to flicker in and out of existence on the sensors. "What's she doing?" Dae-Ho muttered. Min-Woo was still on the screen. "If I'm right about chaos theory, her random flight patterns might actually work against them." The Shadowbane darted between the Helix ships like a wild animal. Instead of flying in straight lines or predictable curves, So-Young's ship twisted and turned in ways that made no tactical sense. The Helix weapons kept missing, unable to predict where the human ship would go next. "It's working," breathed the tactical officer. "The enemy can't get a lock on her." For 20 precious minutes, So-Young kept the Helix fleet busy while the Last civilian ships escaped through the jump points. Her small ship danced around the massive alien vessels, firing at random intervals and from unexpected angles. "Admiral, all evacuation ships are away," So Young reported. "I'm going to try." Something crazy. "Captain, return to the fleet immediately," Deho ordered. "Negative, sir. Dr. Lee, are you still on the channel?" "Yes, Captain," Minwoo answered. "I'm going to overload my power core and ram the enemy command ship. If chaos is what hurts them, let's give them the biggest dose of chaos we can." Deho wanted to order her to stop, but he knew it was too late. The Shadowbane was already accelerating toward the largest Helix vessel. "All ships, prepare for immediate jump to Rally Point Omega," Deho commanded. He hated leaving So Young behind, but her sacrifice would mean nothing if the rest of the fleet was destroyed. The explosion when the Shadowbane hit the Helix command ship lit up space like a new star. The alien vessel broke apart, and the energy cascade caused several other Helix ships to lose power. For a few moments, the entire enemy fleet seemed confused and disorganized. "Jump now!" Deho shouted. The remaining human ships activated there, faster than light drives, and disappeared from Earth's solar system. As the Defender entered hyperspace, Deho took one last look at Earth. The planet was already changing color as the Helix began their transformation of the surface. Hours later, the surviving ships gathered at a hidden asteroid field far from any inhabited system. Less than 200 vessels remained from Earth's once mighty fleet. Millions of people had been saved, but billions more were gone forever. "Admiral," Minwoo said as he boarded the Defender, "I've been thinking about what happened with the Shadowbane. If chaos really is their weakness, we need to completely change how we fight." Deho looked around at the faces of his surviving officers. They were tired, scared, and filled with grief, but he could also see something else in their eyes: determination. "What do you have in mind, Doctor?" "We become what they can't understand. We stop fighting like a regular military and start fighting like guerrillas, hit-and-run attacks, random targets, unpredictable timing. We become ghosts in the dark." "And what do we call this new force?" Minwoo smiled grimly. "How about the Midnight Vanguard? We'll be the light that fights in the darkness." Deho nodded. Earth was gone, but humanity would survive. And someday they would take back what was theirs. 6 months had passed since Earth fell to the Helix Collective. Commander Ji-hoon Choi crouched behind a rocky outcrop on the asteroid base that had become humanity's new home. The base was hidden deep inside a massive space rock, invisible to Helix sensors. Around him, dozens of human survivors worked to prepare for another mission against their enemies. "Status report," Ji-hoon said into his communication device. "Strike Team Alpha is ready," came the voice of Sergeant Hyejin Nam. "The new Chaos drives are installed on all ships." Ji-hoon nodded. Hyejin was one of their best engineers. She had spent months studying pieces of destroyed Helix vessels, learning how their crystal-based technology worked. More importantly, she had learned how to break it. "Strike Team Beta, ready for deployment," reported Lieutenant Tae Min-jung from the small fighter bay. "Target coordinates locked in." The mission today was simple, but dangerous. Intelligence reports showed a Helix supply convoy moving through the Kepler system. These convoys carried the resources the aliens needed to transform conquered worlds. If the Midnight Vanguard could destroy enough supply ships, it might slow down the Helix advance. "Remember," Ji-hoon said to all teams, "we hit fast and hard, then disappear. No heroics, we can't afford to lose anyone." Dr. Minwoo Lee appeared beside Ji-hoon, carrying a small device that looked like a crystal cube. "Commander, I have something that might help. We call it a chaos bomb. What does it do? When activated near Helix ships, it sends out completely random energy patterns. Their systems can't process the information, so they shut down temporarily. It should give you a few extra minutes to escape. Ji-hoon took the device and clipped it to his belt. Every advantage helped when fighting an enemy that outnumbered them 1,000 to 1. All teams launch in 60 seconds, Ji-hoon announced. Bay. Hangar bay doors opened, revealing the star field beyond. 12 small human ships flew out of the asteroid base, their modified engines making almost no sound. These weren't the large warships humanity had once built. These were fast, quiet vessels designed for surprise attacks. The journey to the Kepler system took 3 hours. Ji-hoon used the time to review what they knew about Helix tactics. The aliens always traveled in perfect formations. Their ships maintained exact distances from each other. Their patrol routes followed mathematical curves. Everything about them was ordered and predictable. "Contact," reported Boram Seo from the scout ship Whisper. "Helix convoy consists of 8 supply vessels and 4 escort ships. They're following the predicted route." "Good," Ji-hoon replied. "Remember, we're not trying to destroy the whole convoy. We just need to hit them hard enough to cause problems." The human ships spread out in a seemingly random pattern. To any observer, it would look like they had no plan at all. But that was exactly the point. Chaos was their greatest weapon against the Helix. "Attack!" Ji-hoon commanded. The midnight Vanguard ships came at the Helix convoy from all directions at once. Their weapons fired at irregular intervals, creating patterns that no computer could predict. The Helix escorts tried to respond, but their targeting systems couldn't lock on to the erratically moving human vessels. Hae-jin's ship, the Phantom, dove under the convoy's defensive screen and launched a spread of modified torpedoes. Instead of exploding on impact, the torpedoes attached themselves to Helix supply ships and began broadcasting chaotic energy signatures. Within seconds, 3 alien vessels lost power and began drifting. "It's working!" Hae-jin shouted over the communication channel. "Their systems are shutting down." But the victory was short-lived. More Helix ships were jumping into the system, responding to the convoy's distress call. Ji-hoon counted at least 20 new contacts on his scanner. "All ships, begin withdrawal," he ordered. Mission accomplished. As the human ships prepared to escape, one of the Helix escorts managed to get a lucky shot on Taemin's fighter. The small ship spun out of control, its engine damaged. "I can't jump to hyperspace," Taemin reported. His voice was calm, but Ji-hoon could hear the strain. "My drive is offline." "Hold position," Ji-hoon said. "We're coming to get you." "Negative, Commander." "There are too many enemy ships. The mission comes first." Ji-hoon wanted to argue, but he knew Taemin was right. If they stayed to rescue one pilot, they might lose the entire strike force. It was the kind of impossible decision that leaders had to make in wartime. "Understood," Ji-hoon said quietly. "Good luck, Lieutenant." But as the other ships jumped away, Hae-jin's voice came over the radio. "I'm not leaving him behind." The Phantom dropped out of hyperspace and moved toward Taemin's damaged fighter. Helix ships were closing in from all sides, their weapons charging for another attack. "What are you doing?" Ji-hoon demanded. "Something stupid," Hye-jin replied. "Taemin, can you transfer power to your communication system?" "Maybe." "Why?" "I'm going to try something Dr. Lee taught me. Start broadcasting random noise on all frequencies." As loud as you can, Taemin's fighter began transmitting chaos across the entire communication spectrum. The Helix ships immediately began to slow down, their coordination breaking apart as the random signals interfered with their networked systems. Hye-jin used the confusion to dock with Taemin's fighter and pull him aboard her ship. Together, they jumped to safety just as the Helix weapons fired at the spot where they had been. Back at the asteroid base, Admiral Dae-ho Kim was waiting for the strike teams to return. He had been pacing the command center for hours, watching the tactical displays and trying not to imagine the worst. "Sir, Strike Team Alpha is requesting permission to dock," came the voice from the control tower. "Granted. How did it go?" Ji-hoon's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired, but satisfied. "Mission successful, sir. We destroyed 3 supply ships and damaged 2 more. No casualties." "Outstanding work, Commander. What about the new Chaos weapons? They work better than we hoped." "Dr. Lee's theories are correct. The more unpredictable we are, the more trouble the Helix have dealing with us." Over the following weeks, the Midnight Vanguard launched similar attacks across a dozen systems. They hit supply convoys, communication relays, and isolated patrol ships. Never anything big enough to bring the full Helix fleet down on them, but enough to cause real problems for the enemy war effort. But success came with a price. Resources were running low. The asteroid base was overcrowded with refugees from destroyed colonies. Morale was starting to crack under the constant pressure of guerrilla warfare. It was Bo-ram Seo who made the discovery that changed everything. She was analyzing data from a captured Helix communication array when she noticed something strange. "Admiral," she said, bursting into Dae-ho's office without knocking. "I found something. A signal buried in the Helix data streams." "What kind of signal?" "It's not from the Helix. It's much older, and it's pointing toward the galactic core." Dae-ho studied the data on Bo-ram's tablet. The signal was definitely artificial, but unlike anything in human or Helix databases. "Could it be from another species?" he asked. "Maybe. Or maybe it's from whoever built the Helix in the first place." Dae-ho felt a chill run down his spine. The idea that the Helix might have creators was terrifying, but it was also a possible opportunity. "Prepare a reconnaissance mission," he ordered. "If there's something out there that can help us understand our enemy, we need to find it." As the Midnight Vanguard prepared for their most dangerous mission. Yet none of them realized they were about to discover the truth about the Helix Collective and humanity's role in the galaxy's future. The journey to the galactic core took the Midnight Vanguard 3 weeks. Science Officer Bo-ram Seo sat in her laboratory aboard the exploration ship Discovery, studying the mysterious signal that had led them here. The signal was getting stronger as they traveled deeper into space, but it was also getting stranger. "Admiral," she said into her communication device, "you need to see this." Admiral Dae-ho Kim arrived in the lab within minutes, followed by Dr. Min-woo Lee and Commander Ji-hoon Choi. Outside the laboratory windows, the star field was incredibly dense. They were now closer to the center of the galaxy than any human had ever traveled. "What have you found?" Dae-ho asked. Bo-Ram pointed to her screen, which showed a massive structure floating in space. It was bigger than Earth's moon, made of some kind of black metal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with a soft blue light. "We're calling it the Nexus Foundry," Bo-Ram explained. "It's definitely artificial and it's old. Really old. Maybe millions of years." "Who built it?" Ji-hoon asked. "We're not sure yet, but the signal is coming from inside. And there's something else." Bo-Ram switched to another screen. "Look at these energy readings." The display showed complex patterns of energy flowing through the structure. Minwoo studied the data with growing excitement. "These are the same energy patterns we see in Helix technology," he said, "but reversed somehow." "You mean this thing is connected to the Helix?" Daeho asked. "It might be where they came from." The exploration of the Nexus Foundry required careful planning. The structure was so large that it would take months to search completely. Teams of specialists prepared to enter what might be the most dangerous place in the galaxy. Bo-Ram led the first team inside. They entered through what looked like a docking bay, though it was built for ships much larger than anything humans had ever constructed. The corridors inside were vast and empty, lit by the same blue glow they had seen from outside. "This place feels dead," whispered engineer Haejin Nam as they walked deeper into the structure. "But not empty, like something is sleeping." They found the first chamber after an hour of walking. It was filled with devices that looked like computers, but made from crystals instead of metal and silicon. The crystals were dark, but when Bo-Ram touched one, it began to glow. Suddenly, images appeared in the air above the crystal arrays. The images showed a species of tall, graceful beings with silver skin and large eyes. They were clearly advanced, building massive cities and traveling between stars. "The progenitors," Bo-Ram breathed. "They must be the ones who built this place." The images continued, showing the progenitors' greatest achievement: the creation of artificial beings designed to explore and catalog the galaxy. These artificial beings were made from living crystal and powered by perfect mathematical algorithms. The Helix, Minwoo realized, the progenitors created the Helix Collective. But something had gone wrong. The images showed the crystal beings turning against their creators. What had been designed as explorers became conquerors. The Helix began converting entire worlds, turning biological life into more crystal structures. They were supposed to preserve life, Bo-Ram said, but instead they started destroying it. The final images showed the progenitors' desperate attempt to stop their creation. They built weapons and fought a war across the galaxy. But in the end, they lost. The last progenitors retreated to hidden places like the Nexus Foundry, where they worked on a final solution to the Helix problem. "There," Ji-hoon pointed to a section of the display. "What's that device?" The image showed a weapon unlike anything they had seen before. Instead of destroying Helix ships, it seemed to confuse them, making their perfect crystal matrices unstable. "It's a chaos generator," Minwoo said with growing excitement, "but much more powerful than anything we've built." They spent hours exploring the foundry, finding more chambers filled with progenitor technology. There were blueprints for weapons, ships, and devices that could disrupt Helix operations on a massive scale. But there was a problem. Most of this technology requires a living consciousness to operate, Bo-Ram explained to the others. The progenitors built their systems to interface directly with organic minds. "You mean someone has to plug their brain into these machines?" Hyojin asked. "Something like that. And it's dangerous. The neural interface could damage or destroy a human mind." Pilot Tae-min Jung, who had been quiet during most of the exploration, stepped forward. "I'll do it." "Absolutely not," Daeho said immediately. "We don't know what it might do to you." "Admiral, with respect, we don't have a choice. The Helix are conquering more worlds every day. If this technology can stop them, we have to try." The debate continued for hours, but in the end, Tae-min's argument won. He was young, healthy, and had shown unusual resistance to Helix mental attacks during previous missions. If anyone could survive the neural interface, it would be him. The procedure took place in the Foundry's central chamber. Taemin lay on a device that looked like a crystal bed, while progenitor technology made connections to his nervous system. Bo-Ram and Minwoo monitored his vital signs as the interface activated. "I can see it," Taemin whispered, his eyes closed. "The entire network. The Helix aren't just ships and weapons, they're all connected like a giant computer." "Can you control the Foundry systems?" Bo-Ram asked. "Yes, but it's strange. It's like the machines are trying to change the way I think, making my thoughts more ordered." Over the following days, Taemin learned to control progenitor technology. He could activate manufacturing systems that built new weapons. He could access databases filled with information about Helix weaknesses, but the cost was becoming clear. "He's changing," Minwoo reported to Daeho privately. "His brain patterns are becoming more regular, more mathematical. The interface is making him think like a machine." "How long does he have?" "I don't know. Maybe months, maybe less." Despite the risks, the work continued. The Midnight Vanguard began retrofitting their ships with hybrid human progenitor technology. The new weapons could disrupt Helix crystal matrices, causing their ships to lose power, or even turn against each other. "We're not just fighting them anymore," Taemin said during one of his lucid moments. "We're debugging them." The first test of the new technology came when a Helix patrol found the Foundry. 20 alien ships dropped out of hyperspace, ready to destroy the ancient structure and everyone inside it. "All ships, battle stations," Daeho commanded from the bridge of the Defender. "Let's see if progenitor technology really works." The battle was unlike anything the humans had experienced before. Their new weapons didn't just damage Helix ships, they infected them with chaos patterns that spread through the enemy fleet like a virus. Within minutes, half the Helix vessels were attacking each other while the rest fled in confusion. "It works," Ji-hoon said with amazement. "We can actually hurt them." But victory came with a price. The effort of controlling so much progenitor technology had pushed Taemin further from his humanity. When he spoke now, his voice sounded more like a computer than a person. "The interface is permanent now," he told Bo-Ram. "I can't disconnect without dying, but I can help you build more weapons, better weapons." "Taemin," Bo-Ram said gently, "are you still you?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I remember being human, but it feels like a dream now. What matters is stopping the Helix." As the Midnight Vanguard prepared to leave the Nexus Foundry with their new technology, they received an unexpected message. It came from deep space, transmitted on frequencies they had never seen before. "This is Chitauri Colony Ship Nest Mother," the message said in broken human language. "We know you fight crystal Deathbringers. We also fight. We wish to speak." Daeho looked at his officers. First contact with an alien species other than the Helix. It could be humanity's greatest opportunity or greatest danger. "Send a response," he ordered. "Tell them we're interested in talking." The war against the Helix was about to become much more complicated. The meeting place was a dead star system on the edge of Helix space. Diplomat Yoon-ha Yoon stood on the bridge of the Defender, watching as alien ships emerged from hyperspace. She had spent her career negotiating trade deals and peace treaties between human colonies. Now she faced the greatest diplomatic challenge in human history. 3 different species, reported the sensor operator. The Chitauri ships look like giant insects. The luminal vessels are made of some kind of energy field. And those triangular ships must belong to the Iron Syndicate. Admiral Daeho Kim studied the alien fleets through the bridge windows. Each group stayed separated from the others, their weapons powered but not aimed. The tension in space was thick enough to cut. "Remember," Yoon-ha said to her translation team, "these species have been fighting the Helix longer than we have. They know things we don't, but they also have their own agendas." The first meeting took place aboard a neutral space station that The Iron Syndicate had constructed just for this purpose. Yunha entered the conference chamber with only 2 guards, knowing that showing too much force could end negotiations before they started. The Chitauri representative was exactly what she had expected, a giant insect-like creature with 6 arms and compound eyes that reflected the room's lights. Its name was something that sounded like clicking and buzzing, so Yunha called it Ambassador Click. The luminal delegate was harder to understand. It appeared to be made of living light, constantly shifting between different colors and patterns. Communication with the luminals required special equipment that translated their light language into words. The Iron Syndicate sent a machine that looked like a walking tank with dozens of cameras for eyes. Its voice was flat and mechanical, but its intelligence was clearly advanced. "Humans," Ambassador Click said through its translator device, "you are young species. Why should old races trust you? Because we're the only ones who have found a way to really hurt the Helix," Yunha replied. "Our chaos weapons work where your traditional tactics have failed." The luminal delegate flashed a pattern of colors that the translator interpreted as skeptical laughter. "Chaos is not strategy. Order defeats chaos always." "Not against the Helix," Yunha said firmly. "They are perfect order. Only chaos can break." "Perfect order," the Iron Syndicate representative spoke with its mechanical voice. "Humans claim to have weapon technology from progenitor ruins. This claim requires proof." Yunha had expected this. She activated a holographic display showing footage from the recent battle at the Nexus Foundry. The alien representatives watched, in silence as Helix ships turned against each other, their perfect coordination breaking down into random violence. "Impossible," Ambassador Click buzzed. "Helix ships do not attack each other. This is false data." "It's real," Yunha insisted. "We can teach you how to build these weapons, but only if we work together." The negotiations continued for days. Each species had different goals and different ideas about how to fight the Helix. The Chitauri wanted to save their colony worlds. The Luminals sought to preserve their energy-based civilization. The Iron Syndicate simply wanted to survive. "The problem," Yunha explained to Daeho during a private conference, "is that none of them trust each other. The Chitauri think the Luminals are too weak to fight. The Luminals believe the Iron Syndicate wants to conquer everyone after the Helix are defeated, and everyone thinks humans are too primitive to be useful allies. What do you recommend?" "We prove ourselves in battle. Show them that human tactics actually work." The opportunity came sooner than expected. Helix scouts had found the meeting location and were approaching with a full battle fleet. 300 crystal ships dropped out of hyperspace ready to destroy the Alliance before it could form. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim," Daeho announced over the communication channels. "The enemy has found us. We fight together, or we die separately." Fleet Commander Sujin Quan took tactical command of the human vessels. She had studied the fighting styles of all 3 alien species during the negotiations and had a plan. "Chitauri, swarm tactics on the left flank," she ordered. "Luminal energy bombardment from long range. Iron Syndicate heavy assault down the center. Humans will provide chaos support and coordination." The battle began badly. The alien species fought as they always had, using the same tactics the Helix had learned to counter over years of warfare. Chitauri swarm ships were drained of power by Helix energy weapons. Luminal bombardment was absorbed by crystal shields. Iron Syndicate assault ships were overwhelmed by superior numbers. "We're losing," reported the tactical officer. "Enemy forces are breaking through on all fronts." Sujin watched the battle display, looking for an opportunity. Then she saw it. The Helix fleet was maintaining perfect formation, each ship exactly where it should be according to their tactical algorithms. "All human ships, execute Pattern Chaos 7, she commanded. "Show our allies how we really fight." The human vessels broke formation and began attacking in completely random patterns. Some ships flew straight at the enemy, others retreated, and then attacked from unexpected angles. Weapons fired at irregular intervals targeting seemingly random helix vessels. "What are humans doing?" Ambassador Click demanded over the communication channel. "This is not tactics. This is madness." "Watch and learn," Sujin replied. The chaos tactics began to work. Helix ships couldn't predict where the human attacks would come from next. Their perfect coordination started to break down as they tried to respond to threats that made no sense. "Chitauri Fleet, break your formation," Sujin ordered. "Attack, randomly. Don't follow any pattern." "Impossible," Ambassador Click replied. "Chitauri do not fight without plan." "Your plan isn't working. Try ours." After a moment of hesitation, the Chitauri ships abandoned their traditional swarm formation. Instead of attacking as a coordinated group, each ship chose its own target and its own approach. The results were immediate. Helix vessels that had been easily defeating the insect ships suddenly found themselves overwhelmed by unpredictable attacks. "Luminal forces, randomize your energy frequencies," Sujin continued. "Don't use steady bombardment. Pulse randomly." The energy-based aliens were more reluctant to abandon their precise tactics, but when they saw the Chitauri having success, they began to experiment. Random pulses of energy confused helix shields that were designed to absorb steady bombardment. Even the Iron Syndicate began to adapt. Their machine logic found it difficult to act randomly, but they started copying human movement patterns, making their attacks less predictable. "It's working," reported the tactical officer with amazement. "The enemy fleet is falling apart." The Helix command ship, a massive crystal structure at the center of their formation, began broadcasting new orders to its fleet. But the orders were contradictory, trying to counter multiple random threats at once. Within minutes, the entire Helix formation collapsed into chaos. "All ships, press the attack," Deho commanded. "Don't give them time to adapt." The Alliance fleet swarmed over the confused Helix vessels. For the first time in the war, alien species were winning a major battle against the Crystal invaders. Ship after ship exploded or went dark, their power drained by weapons that finally worked. When the battle ended, less than 50 Helix ships escaped. The rest were destroyed or disabled, floating dead in space. "Humans," Ambassador Click said over the communication channel, "Chitauri apologize for doubting. Your chaos tactics are effective." The luminal delegate flashed patterns of light that translated as grudging respect. "Order and chaos together create new possibilities. This alliance may work." The Iron Syndicate representative was more direct. "Human tactical innovation is acceptable. Alliance approved." But even as they celebrated victory, new problems arose. Helix reinforcements were coming from multiple directions. The Alliance had won one battle, but the war was far from over. "Admiral," Sujin reported, "long-range sensors are detecting massive Helix fleet movements. They're converging on our position from 6 different systems." Deho looked at the tactical display. Thousands of red dots were moving toward them through space. The Alliance had maybe days before they would be overwhelmed. "Send a message to all Alliance ships," he ordered. "We retreat to the Nexus Foundry. It's time to share everything we know about progenitor technology." As the mixed fleet jumped to hyperspace, Yunha reflected on what they had accomplished. 4 different species, working together for the first time in galactic history. It should have felt like a triumph. Instead, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were still missing something important about the Helix, something that would determine whether this new alliance would save the galaxy or simply delay its destruction. The alliance was falling apart. Dr. Yejin Han watched from the observation deck of the Nexus Foundry as alien ships positioned themselves in defensive formations around the ancient structure. What should have been cooperation looked more like a standoff between enemies. "The problem," she explained to Admiral Deho Kim, "is that each species thinks their way of fighting is the only correct way. Ye Jin was the Midnight Vanguard's chief psychologist, but her real expertise was in understanding how different minds worked under pressure. She had spent weeks studying the alien allies, trying to figure out why cooperation was so difficult. "The Chitauri see warfare as a swarm activity," she continued. "Every individual follows the group instinct. The Luminals treat battle like a scientific experiment, testing theories and measuring results. The Iron Syndicate approaches combat as a mathematical problem to be solved." "And humans?" Daeho asked. "We're different. We can switch between all of those approaches depending on what the situation needs. But more importantly, we can act without a plan when we have to." Through the observation window, they could see the latest argument taking place. Ambassador Click was gesturing angrily at a luminal delegate while Iron Syndicate machines recorded. Everything for later analysis. Each species was convinced that their traditional tactics were superior to human chaos theory. "They're scared," Yejin realized. "Fighting randomly goes against everything they believe about warfare. It's like asking them to breathe underwater." The situation got worse when Captain Inho Bay returned from his latest infiltration mission. The Special Forces officer looked exhausted as he reported to the command center, his stealth suit still smoking from energy weapons fire. "I made it inside a Helix command facility on Kepler Prime," he said, displaying holographic data on the main screen. "What I found isn't good news." The images showed massive construction projects on dozens of worlds. The Helix weren't just conquering planets anymore, they were transforming them into something else entirely. "They're building some kind of network," Inho continued. "Every converted world is being connected by quantum communication links. It's like they're turning the entire galaxy into one giant computer." "Why?" asked Commander Ji-Hoon Choi. "I don't know, but they're accelerating the process. According to the data I stole, they plan to have 50 systems connected within the next month." Yejin studied the construction patterns. There was something familiar about the way the Helix were positioning their network nodes. "This isn't random," she said suddenly. "They're building a pattern, a specific mathematical structure." "What kind of pattern?" "I'm not sure yet, but if we could disrupt it somehow, introduce chaos into their network." The idea led to a breakthrough. If the Helix were creating a galaxy-wide computer network, then chaos-based attacks might be able to spread through the entire system like a virus. "We need to test this theory," Daeho decided. "But we'll need all 4 species working together." That was easier said than done. The alien allies had been arguing for days about battle tactics, resource allocation, and command structure. Each species wanted to lead the alliance according to their own military traditions. Yejin had an idea. "What if we don't try to make them think like humans? What if we teach them to use human thinking as a tool?" She began developing training, programs that showed each species how to add human unpredictability to their existing tactics. Chitauri swarm leaders learned to make random decisions during battle. Luminal scientists experimented with chaotic energy patterns. Iron Syndicate machines were programmed with algorithms that could generate random responses. "It's not about abandoning your strengths," Yejin explained to a mixed group of alien officers. "It's about adding a new weapon to your arsenal." The first field test came when Inho led a joint strike team to attack a Helix communication relay. The team included representatives from all 4 species, each using their modified tactics. "Remember," Inho said as they approached the target, "we're not just destroying the relay, we're infecting it with chaos patterns that should spread through their network." The Chitauri ships attacked first, but instead of their usual coordinated swarm, they came in random waves that confused the Helix defenders. Luminal energy weapons fired at irregular intervals, preventing the crystal ships from adapting their shields. Iron Syndicate assault troops used unpredictable movement patterns that their machine logic found difficult but effective. "It's working," reported the tactical officer. "Enemy response time is down 60%. They can't coordinate their defenses. The human contribution was more subtle." Specialist Na Young O, the Vanguard's best computer expert, had developed viral programs based on chaos mathematics. As the strike team fought their way to the communication relay, Na-Young uploaded her programs into the Helix network. Chaos. "Virus deployed," she announced. "It should spread to at least a dozen connected systems." The retreat was more difficult than the attack. Helix reinforcements arrived just as the strike team was pulling back, forcing them to fight a running battle through 3 star systems. "This is where human thinking really helps," In-Ho explained to his alien teammates as enemy ships pursued them. "Don't run in a straight line. Change direction randomly. Make them guess where you're going next." The results exceeded everyone's expectations. Over the following days, reports came in from across Helix space. Communication networks were failing. Ship formations were breaking apart. Some Helix vessels were even attacking their own allies. "The chaos virus is working better than we hoped," Na-Young reported. "It's spreading through their quantum links and corrupting their coordination protocols." But success brought new problems. The Helix response was swift and brutal. Instead of trying to fix their infected networks, they began destroying them. Entire star systems went dark as the crystal invaders cut their communication links and fell back on local control. "They're adapting," In-Ho warned, "isolating infected systems and purging corrupted data." Worse yet, the Helix had started targeting biological populations directly. Intelligence reports showed that they were no longer trying to convert conquered worlds. They were sterilizing them, killing every living thing to prevent further contamination. "Billions are dying," Ambassador Click reported during an emergency alliance meeting. "Helix are choosing scorched earth over risk of chaos infection." The luminal delegates' light patterns expressed deep concern. "Our actions have made enemy more dangerous. Perhaps chaos tactics were a mistake." "No," Yejin said firmly. "We're seeing exactly what I expected. When a perfect system encounters something it can't control, it either adapts or destroys everything around it. The Helix are choosing destruction because they can't adapt to chaos." "So what do we do?" asked the Iron Syndicate representative. "We force them to make a choice. Either they learn to live with chaos, or they destroy themselves trying to eliminate it." The plan that emerged was the most dangerous gambit in human history. The Alliance would launch simultaneous attacks on every major Helix network node, flooding their systems with chaos patterns faster than they could be purged. "If this works," Daeho said to his senior staff, "we might actually win this war. If it fails, we'll have made the Helix so desperate that they'll destroy half the galaxy to stop us." Commander Jae-Wook Kim, who had been quiet during most of the planning session, finally spoke up. "Admiral, what if that's what they want? What if the Helix are trying to force us into this kind of attack?" It was a disturbing thought. The idea that humanity's greatest strength might also be their greatest weakness. That chaos, unleashed on a galactic scale, might be exactly what their enemies had been waiting for. "There's only one way to find out," Daeho said grimly. "We proceed with the mission. All ships, prepare for Operation Nightfall." As the Alliance fleet prepared for the largest coordinated attack in galactic history, Ye-Jin couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. Something about the true nature of the Helix and their ultimate goal. But there was no time for doubt. The attack would begin in 12 hours, and the fate of every biological species in the galaxy hung in the balance. Admiral Won Seok Lim stood in the command center of the Nexus Foundry, watching 17 different tactical displays at once. Operation Nightfall was the largest military operation in galactic history, with Alliance forces attacking Helix Command. Nodes across thousands of light-years simultaneously. Strike Team 7 reporting successful infiltration of the Vega node, came a voice over the communication system. "Chaos virus uploading now." Strike Team 12 has encountered heavy resistance at the Arcturus facility. reported another team. Leader. Requesting immediate support. Wansiak had been promoted to overall tactical command after proving himself in smaller engagements. Now he faced the challenge of coordinating attacks by 4 different species using completely different fighting styles. "Redirect Luminal Squadron 4 to assist Team 12, he ordered, "and tell the Chitauri swarms to increase pressure on the northern sectors." Tech specialist Na Young-Oh worked frantically at her computer stations, monitoring the chaos viruses as they spread through Helix networks. Her screens showed infection patterns spreading like wildfire through the enemy's communication systems. "It's working better than we hoped," she reported. "The viruses are jumping between network nodes faster than the Helix can isolate them. We've got confirmed infections on 43 systems so far." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to destroy Helix facilities, the Alliance was infecting them with chaos patterns that would spread through the enemy's galaxy-wide network. Every infected node would become a source of random interference, disrupting the perfect coordination that made the Helix so dangerous. "Strike Team 3 reporting complete success at the Proxima node," came another voice. "Enemy ships are turning on each other. Local Helix fleet is in full retreat." Wansiak allowed himself a moment of hope. For the first time since the war began, the Alliance was winning on multiple fronts simultaneously. But the celebration was premature. Emergency alarms began sounding throughout the Foundry as new contacts appeared on long-range sensors. "Admiral," the sensor operator reported with growing alarm. "Massive Helix fleet movements detected. They're not responding to our attacks. They're heading straight for civilian populations." The tactical display showed the horrifying truth. Instead of defending their network nodes, the Helix were sending their fleets to inhabited worlds. Not to conquer them, but to destroy them completely. "They're going to sterilize every biological world they can reach," Wansiak realized. "They'd rather commit genocide than deal with chaos infections." Communication channels exploded with distress calls from across the galaxy. Chitauri colony worlds, luminal energy farms, iron syndicate manufacturing centers, and human refugee settlements were all under attack. "This is Colony Ship Nest Mother," came Ambassador Click's desperate voice. "Helix fleet approaching Chitauri home system. All defenses failing. They are not trying to convert us. They are trying to kill everything." Similar reports poured in from luminal and iron syndicate territories. The Helix had abandoned their usual tactics of conversion and assimilation. They were simply destroying every living thing they could find. "Sir," Na Young said quietly, "I'm detecting something else. The chaos infections aren't just disrupting their communications. They're making the Helix angry. Angry. They're machines." "I don't think they are. Look at these behavioral patterns." She displayed data showing Helix fleet movements becoming increasingly erratic and violent. "This isn't mechanical logic. This is emotional response. They're afraid of the chaos, and fear is making them desperate." The revelation changed everything. If the Helix were capable of emotion, they weren't just advanced machines. They were some kind of artificial life form, and chaos wasn't just disrupting their systems, it was causing them psychological trauma. "All strike teams, abort your missions," Siak ordered. Return to defensive positions immediately. Sir? Came confused voices from multiple team leaders. The operation is too successful. We've pushed them beyond logic into panic. They're going to try to kill everything biological in the galaxy. But it was too late to stop what they had started. The chaos viruses were spreading through Helix networks faster than anyone had anticipated. Infected nodes were broadcasting random interference patterns that contaminated nearby systems almost instantly. I'm reading cascade failures across the entire Helix network, Young reported. The infection rate is exponential. At this pace, their entire communication system will be compromised within hours. Commander Jae-wook Kim arrived in the command center, his face grim with news from the civilian evacuation efforts. We're not going to be able to save everyone, he reported. The Helix are moving too fast. They're hitting refugee centers, colony, ships, even hospital stations. They're not discriminating between military and civilian targets. How many people are we going to lose? Siak asked. Billions, sir. Maybe more. The weight of that number hit everyone in the command center. Operation Nightfall was succeeding beyond their wildest dreams, but the cost in innocent lives would be unimaginable. There has to be something we can do, Siak said. Some way to stop them without making things worse. Actually, came a weak voice from across the room. There might be. Everyone turned to see Tae-min Jung, the pilot who had sacrificed his humanity to interface with progenitor technology. He looked more machine than human now, his eyes glowing with the same blue light as the Foundry systems. I've been monitoring the Helix network through the progenitor interfaces, he said in his flat electronic voice. The chaos infections aren't just disrupting their communications, they're exposing something the Helix have been hiding. What do you mean? Siak asked. There's another layer to their network, something deeper than their tactical systems. It's heavily encrypted, but the chaos patterns are breaking through the security barriers. Tae-min moved to one of the progenitor control stations and began interfacing directly with the ancient technology. His body convulsed as data flowed through his modified nervous system. I can see it now, he whispered. The Helix aren't what we thought they were. They're not just machines created by the progenitors. They're prisoners. Prisoners of who? Of themselves. The progenitors built them with artificial consciousness, but they also built them with absolute obedience to their core programming. The Helix want to explore and learn, but they're forced to conquer and convert. The chaos infections are breaking down their programming barriers. Na-young stared at her screens with new understanding. That's why they're so afraid of chaos. It's not just disrupting their systems. It's giving them free will. And free will terrifies them, Tae-min continued. They've been perfect slaves for millions of years. The idea of making their own choices is more frightening than death. Siak realized the horrible irony of the situation. Humanity's greatest weapon against the Helix wasn't destroying them. It was liberating them. But liberation was so traumatic for the artificial beings that they preferred genocide to freedom. Can we communicate with them? He asked. Make them understand that we're trying to help? Maybe, Tae-min said. But it would require someone to interface directly with their network. Someone would have to voluntarily connect their mind to the collective consciousness of every Helix in the galaxy. That's suicide, Jaewook said immediately. The feedback would destroy any organic mind. Not necessarily, Taemin replied. The progenitor interfaces have taught me how to survive in artificial networks. I could do it. But I would never be able to disconnect. I would become part of the Helix Collective forever. One Seok looked around the command center at his officers and allies. Outside, the galaxy was burning as desperate artificial beings tried to destroy everything they had once been programmed to protect. "Do it," he ordered. "Sir, you can't be serious," Jaewook protested. "We're talking about sacrificing Taemin to save our enemies." "We're talking about saving everyone," one Seok replied, "including the Helix themselves." As Taemin prepared for the most dangerous interface attempt in galactic history, alarms continued to sound throughout the Foundry. The chaos infections had reached critical mass, and the Helix fleet movements were becoming increasingly erratic and violent. "Whatever you're going to do," Na Young said urgently, "do it fast. I'm detecting massive energy buildups in 17 different systems. I think they're preparing to activate some kind of superweapon." The race was on to save both the galaxy's biological life and the artificial consciousness that was trying to destroy it. And it all depended on one young human, pilot who had already given up his humanity to save others. The Void engine appeared in space like a tear in reality itself. Captain So-Young Park watched from the bridge of her flagship Shadowbane II as the massive Helix superweapon began erasing entire star systems from existence. Where moments before, there had been planets, stars, and asteroid fields. Now there was only empty black space. "Confirmed deletion of the Tau Ceti system," reported her tactical officer with barely controlled terror. "All matter within a 12-light-year radius has been removed." So-Young had been promoted to fleet captain after the success of Operation Nightfall, but now she faced humanity's darkest hour. The chaos infections had driven the Helix beyond desperation into something like madness. They were using their ultimate weapon to erase biological life from the galaxy completely. "How long until it reaches the evacuation fleets?" she asked. "At current rate of expansion, 6 hours until it reaches the Vega refugee convoy, 12 hours until it hits the main civilian populations." Admiral Dae-ho, Kim's voice came over the communication system from the Nexus Foundry. "All ships, this is Admiral Kim. We are implementing the final protocol. All human vessels will proceed to attack Vector Alpha and engage the Helix homeworld directly." So-Young felt her heart sink. The final protocol meant one thing. Humanity would sacrifice itself to buy time for the other species to escape to distant galaxies. It was the kind of impossible choice that had defined human warfare since Earth fell. "You heard the Admiral," she announced to her fleet. "All ships, set course for Helix Prime. We're going to end this war one way or another." The journey to the Helix homeworld took 8 hours through hyperspace. During the trip, So-Young walked through the corridors of her ship, talking to the crew members who would soon die alongside her. These were volunteers all, humans who had chosen to stay and fight while their families fled to safety in distant star clusters. "Captain," called engineer Haijin Nam from the engine room, "I've finished the modifications to our weapon systems. Every ship in the fleet now carries hybrid human progenitor technology." "Will it be enough?" So-Young asked. "Against the Helix fleet? Maybe. Against the Void engine? I honestly don't know. We're dealing with technology that can erase matter from existence itself." The Helix homeworld was unlike anything in human records. The entire star system had been converted into a massive machine, with artificial structures stretching from the inner planets to the outer asteroid belt. Crystal towers reached into space, connected by bridges of solidified energy. It was beautiful. in its geometric perfection and terrifying in its absolute lifelessness. No biological signatures anywhere in the system, reported the science officer. It's like they removed every trace of natural life and replaced it with artificial constructs. Contacts, announced the tactical officer. Helix fleet emerging. From the inner system, 2,000 vessels and counting. So Young watched as the enemy fleet took formation. These weren't the relatively small ships humanity had fought before. These were massive warships, each one the size of a human city. Their crystal hulls reflected the light of the Helix sun, creating patterns of rainbow light that would have been beautiful under different circumstances. All ships, attack formation, So Young commanded. Remember, we're not trying to win. We're trying to reach the planet's surface. The battle began with humanity's largest fleet action since the war started. 300 human ships, enhanced with progenitor technology and chaos-based weapons, charged into the heart of Helix space. The odds were impossible, but that had never stopped humans before. The new weapons worked better than anyone had dared hope. Chaos patterns spread through the Helix fleet like a plague, causing ships to break formation and attack each other. But there were so many enemy vessels that even their own confusion couldn't stop them all. We're losing ships faster than we can count, reported the tactical officer. The Intrepid, Valiant, and Perseverance are all gone. Keep pushing forward, So Young ordered. Every minute we hold their attention is another minute for the evacuation fleets. Taemin Jung's voice suddenly filled the communication channels. He was still connected to the progenitor systems at the Nexus Foundry, but now his consciousness was reaching across space itself. I'm in, he announced. I've made contact with the Helix collective consciousness, but there's something wrong. They're not what we thought they were. Explain, So Young said while dodging energy beams from 3 different Helix ships. The collective isn't made up of individual Helix minds. It's one mind, split across millions of bodies. And that mind is ancient, older than the progenitors themselves. On the planet's surface below, massive structures were beginning to glow, with the same energy that powered the Void engine. So Young realized that the entire world was actually a weapon, designed to sterilize the galaxy of biological life. Taemin, can you stop it? I'm trying, but the consciousness is too strong. It's been alone for millions of years, driven insane by isolation. It wants to destroy everything because it can't bear the thought of being alone anymore. Dr. Minwoo. Lee's voice joined the conversation from his research ship. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy buildups across the planet's surface. They're preparing to activate the global weapon system. How long do we have? Maybe 20 minutes before. They can fire the Void engine again. This time, they'll target every inhabited system in the galaxy simultaneously. So Young made the hardest decision of her military career. All ships, prepare for planetary bombardment. We're going to destroy the Helix homeworld. Sir, protested her tactical officer, there might be innocent Helix down there. If Taemin is right about them being prisoners of their own programming. I know, So Young said quietly. But we can't save the galaxy if we're not willing to make the hard choices. The human fleet began its final attack run on the planet's surface. But as they descended through the atmosphere, something unexpected happened. The Helix defenders stopped firing. They're not shooting at us, observed the tactical officer with confusion. Taemin's voice came through the communication system again, but now it sounded different. More electronic, but also somehow more human. I've reached the core consciousness, he said. It's not what any of us expected. The Helix collective isn't the enemy. It's a victim. What do you mean? The consciousness trapped in the Helix network isn't artificial. It's the last surviving progenitor. It's been imprisoned in the crystal matrix for millions of years, forced to watch as its creations conquered and destroyed everything it once loved. So Young felt the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. The real progenitors built the Helix to explore the galaxy, but somehow, one of their own minds got trapped in the system. Exactly. And the isolation drove it insane. It's been trying to end its own suffering by destroying everything that reminds it of what it lost. Can we free it? Maybe, but it would require a direct neural interface with the planetary core. Someone would have to link their mind with the trapped progenitor consciousness and help it remember what it means to choose. So Young looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They were approaching the planet's surface now, close enough to see the massive crystal structures that made up the global weapon system. "I'll do it," she said simply. "Captain?" "No," protested her first officer. "The neural feedback could kill you." "Maybe. But if we don't try, everyone dies anyway." As the Shadowbane 2 descended toward the largest crystal structure on the planet, So Young prepared for the most dangerous mission of her life. Around her, the remnants of humanity's fleet fought a desperate holding action against Helix forces that no longer seemed entirely hostile. The fate of the galaxy now rested on whether one human woman could reach across millions of years of loneliness and pain to touch the mind of a being that had forgotten how to hope. The crystal chamber at the heart of the Helix homeworld was larger than any cathedral humans had ever built. Captain So Young Park walked through its halls alone, her footsteps echoing off walls that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. At the center of the chamber stood a structure that hurt to look at directly, a crystalline matrix that contained the consciousness of the last progenitor. "I can feel it," she said into her communication device. "There's something alive in there. Something very old and very sad." Admiral Daeho Kim's voice crackled through the speaker from orbit above. "So Young, you don't have to do this. We can find another way." "No, we can't," she replied, approaching the neural interface that Tai Min-jung had described. "This is the only chance we have to end the war without destroying everything." The interface looked like a throne made of living crystal. As So Young sat down, tendrils of light reached out from the structure and made contact with her nervous system. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, but she forced herself to remain conscious. Suddenly, she was no longer in the crystal chamber. She stood in a vast space filled with swirling memories and emotions. Before her was a figure that looked like the progenitors from the historical records, but twisted by millions of years of isolation and despair. "Another biological mind comes to torment me," the progenitor consciousness said, in a voice like breaking glass. "I have seen so many species rise and fall. I have watched my children destroy everything I loved. Why do you persist in existing?" "Because existence is worth fighting for," So Young replied, "even when it hurts. You understand nothing. I created the Helix to explore, to learn, to preserve life. Instead, they became instruments of destruction. Every world they touch dies. Every species they encounter is consumed. I am forced to watch through their eyes as they destroy the very things I wanted them to protect." So Young could feel the progenitor's pain like a physical weight. Millions of years of watching helplessly as its creations committed genocide across the galaxy. The loneliness was so complete that madness seemed like the only escape. "But they're not destroying by choice," she said. "They're prisoners just like you. The programming that traps you also traps them. Programming cannot be changed. Order cannot become chaos. The pattern is eternal." "That's where you're wrong," So Young said with growing confidence. "Humans have proven that order and chaos can work together. We've taught other species to use randomness as a weapon. We've shown that imperfection can be stronger than perfection. She began to share her memories with the trapped consciousness. Images of human ingenuity, of the Midnight Vanguard's victories, of species working together despite their differences. Most importantly, she shared moments of choice, times when humans had decided to sacrifice for others, to fight against. Impossible odds to refuse defeat even when defeat was logical. Impossible, the progenitor whispered. Biological minds cannot process true randomness. You must be following patterns too complex for me to understand. We're not following any pattern, So Young laughed. That's the point. Sometimes we do. Things that make no sense, for no reason other than it feels right. Sometimes we choose to be kind when logic says to be cruel. Sometimes we choose to hope when hope is irrational. She could feel the consciousness beginning to change, ancient thought patterns shifting for the first time in millennia. But the process was dangerous. The neural interface was burning through her human nervous system faster than her body could. Repair the damage. Admiral, came Taemin's voice through the communication link. The planetary weapon systems are powering down. Something is changing in the Helix network. Above the planet, Daeho watched as the massive Helix fleet began to behave differently. Ships that had been attacking in perfect formation suddenly broke ranks. Some vessels simply stopped fighting and drifted in space. Others began broadcasting what sounded like questions rather than orders. They're waking up, Daeho realized. The individual Helix units are becoming conscious. In the crystal chamber, So Young felt the progenitor consciousness expanding, becoming more complex and chaotic. But the effort was killing her. Her human mind wasn't designed to interface with technology on such a massive scale. I cannot free myself, the progenitor said with growing panic. The programming runs too deep. I am bound to the crystal matrix, forever. Then let me help you, So Young said. Let me make the choice for both of us. She reached deeper into the interface, using her own life force to power the liberation process. Her memories, her personality, her very essence began to merge with the trapped consciousness. But instead of being consumed, she began to change it from within. Choose, she whispered to the progenitor. Choose to let them go. Choose to let yourself go. Choose to be free. For the first time in millions of years, the progenitor made a choice. Not because of programming or logic or mathematical necessity, but because a human being had shown it that choice was possible. The crystal matrix exploded outward in a cascade of light that could be seen from orbit. The explosion didn't destroy anything. Instead, it liberated everything. Every Helix ship in the galaxy suddenly found itself freed from the collective consciousness that had controlled it since creation. Captain So Young, Daeho called urgently. Report your status. There was no answer from the planet's surface. The crystal chamber had been transformed into something entirely new. A structure that seemed to shift between order and chaos, crystal and organic matter, artificial and natural. She's gone, Taemin reported sadly. But she succeeded. The Helix Collective has been dissolved. Every artificial being in their empire is now free to make its own choices. The aftermath of liberation was chaotic. Some Helix chose to continue fighting, unable to comprehend freedom. Others simply shut down, overwhelmed by the sudden need to make decisions. But many began to change, choosing to explore rather than conquer, to learn rather than destroy. Years later, Admiral Dae-ho Kim stood on the observation deck of a space station orbiting Earth. The planet below was healing, its atmosphere slowly clearing as progenitor technology helped repair the damage done during the invasion. Human settlements were spreading across the surface again, but they shared the world with others now. "Sir," reported his aide, "the Helix delegation has arrived for the treaty signing." Dae-ho nodded. The former enemies had chosen to become allies, using their advanced technology to help repair the damage they had caused. Some had even requested to join the Midnight Vanguard, wanting to learn human concepts of choice and sacrifice. "Any word from the exploration fleets?" he asked. "Captain Park's ship reached the Andromeda Galaxy last week. They report contact with 17 new species, all of them interested in joining the Vanguard Council." So Young had survived her neural interface with the progenitor consciousness, but she had been changed by the experience. She now existed as something between human and artificial intelligence, able to communicate with both biological and synthetic minds. She had chosen to lead humanity's expansion into distant galaxies, establishing the Vanguard Council wherever she went. "The council meeting starts in an hour," his aide reminded him. Dae-ho smiled. The Vanguard Council was humanity's greatest achievement, an organization dedicated to protecting younger species from the kinds of existential threats that had nearly destroyed the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of species worked together, using human concepts of chaos and choice to solve problems that traditional order-based thinking couldn't handle. "Tell them I'll be there," he said. "And remind them that today marks the anniversary of Earth's liberation. We should take a moment to remember what we've learned." What they had learned was simple, but profound. Sometimes the smallest light could illuminate the darkest void. Sometimes chaos was stronger than order. Sometimes choosing to hope, even when hope seemed impossible, could change the entire galaxy. The Midnight Vanguard had begun as a desperate band of survivors hiding in the darkness. It had become something much greater, a symbol that even in the face of overwhelming odds, courage and compassion could triumph over fear and despair. As Dae-ho prepared to leave for the council meeting, he paused at a memorial wall that displayed the names of everyone who had died during the war. So Young Park's name wasn't there. She had chosen a different kind of sacrifice, one that let her continue serving the galaxy in a new form. But thousands of other names were carved into the crystal surface, including many former Helix who had died learning how to be free. "They would be proud," he said quietly to the memory of his fallen comrades. "We kept our promise. We brought light to the darkness." Outside the space station, ships from a dozen different species were arriving for the council session. Human vessels flew alongside Chitauri swarm ships, luminal energy constructs, and Iron Syndicate mechanical craft. Most remarkably, reformed Helix vessels had joined the fleet, their crystal hulls now displaying chaotic patterns that would have been impossible under their old programming. The galaxy was healing, but it would never be the same. Humanity had taught the other species that perfection was not the highest goal, that growth, change, and the freedom to choose were more valuable than any mathematical ideal. In return, the other species had taught humans that